I'm author Mark Muncy,
And I'm author Erika Lance.
and this is Eerie Travels. Greetings, travelers.
Greetings, travelers.
Yes, it's still spooky season.
It is, and we get to do a special episode today.
Yes, I love our special episodes. I feel like we need that old ABC. Do. So
That's copyrighted, so we don't get
Yeah, I
that.
know we can't use it. We'll have to make our own. So, but yeah, that special presentation. Yeah,
We do, but I actually, even though it's a special episode, I do have a little bit of breaking news.
breaking news.
So this is not something, but I just feel like this is a little bit of a win as somebody who follows true crime and stuff. But it was announced today. This is being recorded I'm going to say it's being recorded October 18th because we got to record a little early for this. But Jordan Vandersloot, who had been thought to have killed Natalie Holloway for years and years, and this is one of the biggest unsolved mysteries that and there's been so many shows and so many presentations and stuff like that, but without going into all the gory details of what this human has done, he actually finally admitted to killing her.
Okay, so like you always do to me, where does this take place?
So
where did this happen?
This all took place. She was on a trip in she was down in Aruba, and this is a case that dates all the way back to, I think it was 2005, if I'm correct, but it was in the early 2000s. And basically, yeah, it was a trip in 2005, and she just disappeared off the face of the earth. Went to a club one night. She was supposed to actually leave Aruba the next morning, and she disappeared, but she was last seen with Vandersloot. Like, that was the thing. Yeah. And there was back and forth, and he was arrested and brought in for questioning, but there was never any evidence, and they never found the body. And that, of course, is always a huge thing when they can't find the body, right? So
right.
This is not a true crime episode. This is actually a special listener request episode.
But I just needed to know a little bit about that, because I hadn't followed that case. I do remember that in the day a number of years ago, and I'd forgotten about it. So I'm glad that they got this cold case and they got the guy to confess. Even better.
Yes, and unfortunately, I don't think they're going to find the body. He threw it in the water, and it's probably long gone. They've been searching for it for years, so who knows? But I'm just glad because, for the parents, this isn't necessarily justice because they don't have their daughter to put to rest, but at least they finally know what happened. So
at least, yeah, now it's, I'd like to know, so that way I know who to, do certain rituals and invocations to.
Yeah,
make sure
any of our Wiccan and spiritual friends out there, you want to put the whammy, he now officially deserves that whammy.
That was one of the things I often told, as a father of young teenage kids of dating ages, and I would have the boys come over. My comments to them were always, just remember, if you hurt them, I have lots of friends in lots of places, and there is nowhere on this world or the next that you can hide from me. So
yeah, I always used to say too, for anybody that was friends or dating my kids when they were younger, I would say, just for the record, I absolutely know how to dispose of a body.
Yeah. Help you won best place to hide a body 3 years in a row from Tampa Bay's Creative Loafing magazine. So so yeah, I was like, I used to tell them something. Yeah, look at those zombies in my backyard. Don't they look so realistic? That one looks like the one that hurt Beth really good that one time. So.
Oh my God. Yeah, don't mess with the Eerie Travels team.
No.
It will be very unpleasant.
We have friends on the other side. So yeah. And we have friends on this side too. So
we have friends on both sides that can make this a reality. But that this episode's not about that. That was good news.
That was a little sidetrack. Sorry. Current news had to be done. So
yes. But this is a listener request episode because when we first started getting listener stories and questions, which we love your listener stories and questions. So please, please, please keep sending them to us. You can send them to us through our website. There's a contact form, which we love your stories, and you can attach pictures and things like that if you want. And you can always email Mark at eerietravels.com, and he would love to add your listener story or questions. I say email him because he's better at that part than I am. So
it's, I enjoy reading them too. And then and I'd say 99% make it to air, gang. So only a few, and I'm not at liberty to say why they don't, but it's just some are personal and don't want to be on the air, and we're happy to answer those as well. So
yes, we do answer some. So anyway, keep sharing. But the listener request was, Erika, share your ghost stories. So
yeah, because I had shared mine on the old Hellview episode with the kids. We shared the ones at least from Hellview days. I did not share my early ghostly experiences, and of course we've had some experiences since as adults, but I was so happy that somebody requested that because I want to know Erika's backstory as well as the rest of you. So
okay, so we get to Erika's origin story with ghosts. So buckle up, and I'm probably going to freak myself out, so here we go.
I am excited.
I do want to preface one little part of I'm going to do a little prefacing, which is that I am definitely, as many of you listeners know, a believer, but I had experiences at a very young age. So I am going to talk about the first thing I remember, right? Mm-hmm. Which my mom later told me was not the first situation there. So the first thing I remember, I was probably 4 or 5 years old, I think, 4 or 5 years old. And my mom, I actually don't even remember completely everything that happened at that time, but I later asked my mom a little bit about it. So part of what I'm adding into this is clarification when I was older and asked her about it. But she had taken me to a friend's house, and there was some sort of situation with this friend's child. But there were several adults there. I was the only other child that I remember being there, but it was very, there was a lot of tension, right? And of course, I'm very young. I don't know why the tension. My mom got a call, and my sister was at a friend's house playing, and she took me, and we went over to this friend of hers house, and the friend of her had a daughter. And we got there, and there was a lot of talking, a lot of urgency. And we walk in, and I literally said these words, "Mom, why is there a dragon here?"
Ooh.
And what I saw was sort of this writhing swirl of colors in this little girl's room, right? It was a little girl. And I remember it having a maw and teeth, and it was really scary. I remember being scared, but saying something about a dragon. I don't know why, probably because I was a fan of Puff the Magic Dragon, the movie and stuff. Right. Like that's why I equated it to a dragon. And all of the adults, when I said this, turned and looked at me, right? And my mom ushered me into the room and said to sit there and be quiet. They all went into the room and closed the door. And I remember being very scared.
Yes.
Later, my mom told me, and this is when I was an adult, she told me, because she didn't bring it up again, didn't talk about it. She eventually left the house not too long after that and went home. But what she told me later, and I was in my 20s when she told me this, because I brought it up, it was that child was being haunted by something. And this was basically the equivalent of some sort of exorcism or something they were doing, trying to get this thing out of this girl's room.
What?
And out of the house. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. And my mom and her friends were called over due to a religion they believed in, and they were doing something to get this thing out of the house, but none of them could see it. Some of them said they could feel it there, but I described exactly what this little girl described there.
Wow.
So in the spirit of creepiness, that's the first thing I remember. But
Oh my goodness.
yeah, my mom said I used to talk to people all the time.
Oh yeah.
That I used to, I would talk to people and ask her about people that she couldn't see. But I would talk to them all the time and talk about them when I was little, including when I was in my playpen, I'd be laughing and giggling with something as if it was there playing or tickling me or something like that. And there was nothing there that they could see.
Mm.
So then so that's one story.
Wow.
So I don't know what the hell, whether that was a fear monger now that we're looking back, what it was, because I don't think it was. Now that I understand kind of ghosts, and I'm going to describe a little bit what I feel like ghosts or spirits or souls or cookies, whatever you want to call them, because that's actually a term for a soul, are, but that I don't think was that. I think that was something else, right? Fearmonger, demon.
Yeah, something. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, not that of this world. But one thing I realized is I don't think for me seeing ghosts is like seeing them corporeally. Is that a word? Corporeally?
Yep.
Like
Corporeal.
I don't see them like that. I almost see pictures, and I've talked about that a little bit on the show.
Right.
Like almost images of what they want me to see, and they don't like talk to me, like whisper to me. I more like get a movie played for me of what they're trying to say. That's the best equivalent I could give.
That's very empathic medium style. So.
Yeah. So it's not like they sit down and they're like, "Hey, Erica, got to tell you these things." It's kind of like, I went back and listened to our Invisible Friends episode talking about Charlie, because I've had a couple more experiences with Charlie I didn't share. But one of the things that I realized was that I could tell when something was there. I can feel it being there. I can feel where it is or what it's attached to. And I almost can feel intentions behind, like, does it have a malice intention? Is it stuck? Is it whatever? So when I was probably around 6 or 7 years old, me and my sister had bunk beds. We heard about those in the Charlie episode. But we lived on this house in Hollywood that had these this poinsettia, because this is in California, this poinsettia bush that grew up the side of this like lattice work. And it was beautiful. But I remember laying in my bed and feeling like something was like a wet blanket was being draped over me, right?
Okay.
And not like I was being held down. And I remember feeling like that with my body, but I was looking down, feeling like this thing was laying over me, but looking down from the ceiling, right? And the reason the poinsettia bushes came up is because I could see this lattice thing out my window, right? But instead of and there was a street light that hit them, so they all looked a little red, right? It would go black when this would happen.
Ooh.
But I felt like when I would look down on my body, I'd feel a panic and then instantly like wake up and the feeling was gone, right? Like it was. And my mom told me when I talked to her about it when I was younger, she'd say you got to stick with your body, otherwise somebody else is going to take it.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's fun.
Like, yeah. So, I don't know how much credence is put into it, but she was like, you can't just leave it. Something else is going to take it.
Yep.
And there are cases of people like going into comas and then waking up and it being a different person than it was when they went into the coma.
Yeah.
And not like head injury, but completely
different.
person. And so it's kind of the credence of how do spirits and stuff work with the physical plane and bodies, because if you think about ghosts and stuff like that, they are not they don't have physical form generally. And I'm not talking about poltergeists that throw things and shit like that,
No,
right?
no, just
But that was another thing that happened to me several times. And every time my mom would say, well, you can't leave your body because something else will take it.
so you don't get like the grayscale, where you can kind of almost see through people. You don't get any of that. You get
No.
the images, impressions, and then scary, nightmarish things.
Yeah, no, this would terrify me. But it was when I thought about it, and I think when you're a kid, you see things differently. But if I would be looking down, like I'd feel this pressure all of a sudden, and then I'd be looking down at myself. And then the moment I would go, like wake up, it would be gone. The feeling would be gone. And so, but it would always be when the flowers turn dark, which is just a creepy thing to say.
That sounds like some novel of Mary Higgins Clark. When the flowers turn dark.
When the flowers turn dark. And so that would happen. So, but it was around this time and around the time Charlie appeared. So I used to, when Charlie first appeared to me, I don't know why I always got the impression Charlie was like a 12-year-old boy. Like that's the impression I got of Charlie. I don't know why, but that's the impression I got.
What you
and
were
I could
fed.
always tell when he was there. But this was very soon to when my mom said, stop telling people that you can, that you're talking to like Charlie, and said, don't tell people. People are going to begin to think you're crazy. I think this is because when I was before grade, I talk about this with my daycare and stuff like that. I'm quite sure my mom got many, many reports of her crazy daughter talking about different people, right? That I would see. And so, but Charlie, I had a very weird experience because I talked about when I knew Charlie left. And this actually happened when I was 14. I'm going to go back to some other stories, but this was a 14-year-old story. So we moved up to a town called Green Lake, Wisconsin. And Green Lake is off of a river that was dammed up to create a lake, right? Yay, men changing nature. So that's what Green Lake was. And I moved up there. My mom wanted us to get to know my grandfather and my grandmother. And we first stayed at a friend of the family's guest cabin. It was like a mother-in-law cabin. And it was right on the main house was right on the lake. And there was this little like sort of driveway. And then on the other side of the driveway were these guest houses. So there were several of them together, far enough apart that you had a little privacy, but they were all on this like sort of sub road, these little cabins. It was a little 2-bedroom cabin. And one of the things I thought was really neat was we didn't have a lot of snow, obviously, in Hollywood, California, right, growing up there. And we lived in New Mexico for a little while. And there's some fun stories there. But it would snow, but it would melt really quickly because of the altitude. It was 5,000 feet above sea level and stuff. So when it would snow in Green Lake, Wisconsin, one thing, not used to snow at all. But when the moon would come out, like if you're familiar with snow, the ground would glow, right? So and the lake would freeze over. So it was like this really sort of beautiful sight to go out and look and see at night. And so I was 13 or 14 years old, and I walked from the guest house out to the lake, the dock, to just look at the lake because everything was glowing, like almost black light glowing. And there weren't a lot of street lights. So look at me being wowed by that. Yay. And I was turning to walk back towards the house, and I had crossed this little road that people would drive to park and stuff. And I was suddenly hit with the wave of the most intense hatred I can even describe. It like froze me in my path, this wave of hatred, right? And I almost couldn't breathe, and I didn't know how to explain it. Like, I was afraid and everything, and there was nothing in front of me, but I felt it from behind. So I slowly kind of turned around, right?
Yeah.
Expecting literally to have, be attacked. I grew up in Hollywood, California, like, yeah.
Mm.
And standing there was an Indian,
Oh.
a chieftain,
Mhm.
full headdress. That's what I saw, is a chieftain. And I could see that it wasn't quite that, but that's what I perceived, I should say.
Mhm.
And the anger and hatred on this thing's face, like, I can't even begin to explain how much it was. I couldn't move, and I was having a hard time breathing. Like, it was just directed at me. And I had walked to the lake and back, and I knew nothing about this and the history of this place at that time, right? This is the last encounter I had with Charlie, though.
Wow.
I don't even know how long I was frozen there. It was cold outside. I did have a jacket on, so I wasn't like, whatever. I couldn't move. I literally couldn't move. And this thing started to come towards me very slowly, but it was moving towards me. And then I don't know how to explain it, but out of the corner of my eye, I felt Charlie, and I felt run.
Mm.
Like, to this day, I cannot even explain this,
Yeah.
but somehow it broke me from what was happening. And I turned and ran in the house and slammed the door.
He gave you that boost, the
He
break
gave
you
me,
needed.
and my mom, because this was like, what the hell is happening? And I had to catch my breath. Like, it took me a minute, and tears were going down my face. And she's like, oh my God, what happened? And after I could calm down enough, and I was shivering, even though I wasn't cold, if that makes sense. Like, I couldn't
Yeah, no,
calm
you're
down.
yeah.
And when I finally calmed down, I explained what happened. Like, and she's like, oh yeah, this is burial grounds. I'm like, what in the act? So apparently, quite a lot of this area obviously had been Indian lands.
Mm.
And where they had built this stuff had been Indian burial grounds. I'm like, yeah, so we're moving, right? Like, they don't want us here. We're moving. And apparently she had seen this before too.
I just hadn't said anything because she thought she was the only one.
No, I think she just didn't want us to be like, because I couldn't sleep. I was like, no, we need to move. We need to go. I'm going to go stay at grandma's house. I'm going to go stay at the aunt's house.
No.
And so luckily we were moving in, I think, 2 weeks, but I stayed at relatives' houses until then, because that was terrifying. But that was the last time I saw Charlie, was that night after I went to bed. Like, when I got in bed and was trying to go to sleep, felt he was there, but that was the last time I saw Charlie. I just don't think he thought he had to help me anymore. I was 14. I wasn't nearly as cool as I
Or
was.
maybe maybe he used a lot of what he had to make that happen. So and it takes time to recharge these things. We don't know the rules, like we've discussed a million billion times. The rules are open to interpretation at this point. So
Exactly. So I don't know what happened, but that was the last time I saw Charlie. And then, but when I was little, I used to have my mom, if I ever went to a hospital, I think I saw, you make the joke that there are more trick-or-treaters than there are kids in the neighborhood.
yeah.
There are more people in the hospital than there are bodies to contain them.
There are people in the hospital. Yeah. And that's the girls, or both my kids, have both said, hospitals, give them very, very bad feelings because they feel there are more people trying to get in touch with them. Both of them have a little something for that. So
Yeah, when the Sixth Sense came out and I saw the commercial, it was like, I see dead people. I was like, yeah, I don't need to see that movie. I'm good.
And yeah,
Cool.
we call it the Erika Lance story.
Yes. And I actually didn't watch that movie for the longest time because I was like, no, I lived that. And it was actually something when I was younger, and I don't remember who told me this, but was how to sort of protect myself from it. Because
Right.
I feel like one of the things, and I see this too, is the moment you kind of open yourself up for it, they go, oh my gosh, you can see me. Oh my gosh, you can hear me. Like you walk
Yeah.
into a space, and I know you've experienced this
Yeah. They're
where,
all like, oh, hey,
yeah,
hey,
hey. And I'm like, nope,
how you
no,
doing? How you
yeah,
doing? That's like, no, 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 no.
no, no, no. And then they follow you home.
Yeah.
That's the thing that, I
Well,
learned the hard way was being followed home. I actually was never really afraid of the dark so much, I realized, or afraid of things like that, is when you can feel something there. And especially when I was a kid and I couldn't discern what it was that it wanted, you know what I mean? Because sometimes there's an urgency to what they're trying to communicate to you.
yeah.
And like I I remember one time walking behind an apartment we had, because there was a washer dryer behind the apartment, and um feeling like something was trying to grab me, right? Nothing was touching me, but I don't know how to explain. Like I felt like something was trying
Trying,
to
yeah.
grab me,
Pull
and I
you
was,
in.
yeah, and I wouldn't go back behind that apartment building at
So, what
night.
was the advice you were
Oh,
given?
the advice. Oh, I just skipped that part. It's fine.
Because let's talk to, we may have some listeners who are, had their first experience, or are going through this. What was told to you that saved your life?
So there were two pieces of advice I was given. The first was, um, my mom said, threaten to put him in a mason jar, because and this is, it's,
Appalachian witch magic. Nothing wrong with that.
yeah, exactly, is that you have more control over them than they do of you, because they don't have something physically tying them to this world, right? And this is true. I think my personal perception, keep in mind, I'm not like an expert by any means. I've just lived
No
this
one is.
existence,
No
right?
one is. I
Yeah.
mean, there's always people. Oh, I'm an expert on this. We are not expert. My little commercial says expert on the occult. I purposely blobbed that line because I am not an expert on the occult. So yeah.
Yeah. So I think that threatening to contain them can sometimes work very well. I for my friends who have had experiences, I'm like, get a mason jar and literally just announce that if they continue, you're going to put them in it.
For a minute. Yeah.
And the other thing though that I did is a shield, right? So what I was told was to imagine whatever your protection bubble would be, right? But then sort of push it out and imagine you're like slamming it over the windows and slamming it over the doors. And mine is this beautiful glittery crystalline thing, because you know me, Mark,
Yeah.
everything
Yep.
is
You're
beautiful
a
and
beautiful
glittery.
unicorn.
I am. But so I imagine emanating it from me, but I also, when I'm imagining it pushing out anything that is uninvited, like its intention. And I think we talked about that a little bit, is intention, because if you let your space around you shrink because of fear, things can come closer to you. So the
Right.
idea is doing that. And I've done that at times when I started to experience something, and almost felt like what I was doing was pushing this thing outside the house or outside the room or wherever it was that I was trying to do that. Like, because and it worked. And sometimes I've been so scared that it's hard and I have to almost center myself and really pick it up. And sometimes I'll be doing it and then get scared again and have to go back and start and push it out again. But once I have it solidly anchored, I feel like I can go to sleep, or I can do whatever it is that I was unable to do, and things like that. So that has helped me being able to do it. But it's, yeah, so I don't know if you've ever been told anything like that.
I've been told a few things, but let's do that after the break.
Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, we'll be right back. Okay, we'll be right back.
Eerie, Appalachia. Gear up for a frightful jaunt into the darkest reaches of the ancient Appalachians. Folks deep within the Appalachian hollers lean close to the campfire to share stories of the inexplicable with hushed awe. Monsters rumbling in the hills, strange lights darting through the pitch black night sky, horrible occurrences almost ineffable in their bizarre tragedy. Tall tales, you might say. Tell that to the Flatwoods monster in Braxton County, West Virginia, or the Goat Man of Louisville. Look into his humanoid eyes and let him know you don't believe. And what of those apparitions in Mammoth Cave's Corpse Rock, or the Satan spawn known as the Jersey Devil? How do you respond when confronted by these mysteries? From the metaphysical energy that swirls near Serpent Mound in Ohio to Point Pleasant's Mothman legacy, Mark Muncy and Carrie Schultz explore the dark history lurking in the shadows of Appalachia. Read by Mark Muncy, author and experts on strange folklore with appearances on shows such as Ancient Aliens, The Curse of Robert the Doll, and many, many more.
Destiny Beard, the lyrical soprano who will haunt your dreams. With her alluring melodies and intricate harmonies, this dark siren of wistful song shall capture your soul and lead you into the night. Check out Destiny's new single, The Haunting Is Over, with international musicians Sam Haines and Gary Bennett, as well as her other musical works at destinybeard.com.
So have I sufficiently freaked you out yet, Mark?
Oh man, that's the good stuff. That's, this is the kind of stuff I live for. Getting these stories from people and now hearing them from you is just incredible. So this is this is what people will do, is they'll come to me and say, hey, I've had these issues, and I've had, I've seen this recent sighting, I've had this recent thing happen, but I had this thing happen when I was a kid and all that. And again, like what happened, you said your mom saw it and didn't, had never told you. That's why I'm like, if you see something, say something, report these things, write them down, even if you're just sharing with your family at first. But hey, all those families out there, you've got somebody's told you this, put it on paper, put it, document it, tell it to your favorite podcast host or, your favorite local author or something, and, get it on paper if you're not willing to put it on a website, even if it's not public. Because then when your great grandkid comes and starts researching the family history, and you're long gone, but he's seeing things that he shouldn't see or experiencing things he didn't experience, boom, there it is on paper. This happened. Oh, well, maybe the others in my family saw it too, just didn't write it down, but one of them did. So that's really what this is all about, gang.
No, but it's true. It's true. But, so I'm going to tell one more, but then I want to hear one from you. I'm going to take a break from mine because I want to hear one of yours. But
okay. Yeah, I've got
there's a graveyard in Clearwater, Florida, that's in the middle of a road off of Myrtle. Do you know where I'm talking about? In Lakeview? And it's on two sides of the road. It's like Lakeview and Myrtle. And
it's not Cicada Cemetery. It's
a really small one that a bunch of houses grew up around. There's a few, it's completely packed, like no new graves can go into it.
Okay. But so yeah, I think I know the area, and I know a few of the cemeteries in that area. I always get those areas mixed with Rose Hill and Cicada because those are the ones that the ghost hunters like to go into the most. But there are quite a few in that area.
Yeah, and well, there's a little path through one half of this, and the thing about this particular cemetery is the graves actually go right up to the road on one side, and they have a 4-lane street that goes through this graveyard, because I'm quite sure there are things underneath, but I'm not going to go down that path. So we went out one night and we grabbed pizza. We were all about, I want to say 13 years old. 14 years old. No, 14. So I think the Charlie thing happened to me when I was 13, but I was, we were all sitting out there, and I don't usually have a problem with graveyards because most of the time, you can tell the areas that things don't want you to go into, right? They don't want you to disturb them. There are sometimes, they have very much heaviness attached to them, and some people are stuck, right? They're stuck with a loved one or stuck themselves with wherever they were buried, but there is one particular grave that has a little portrait of a girl. It looks like a little cameo, like on the gravesite, and it has her name and everything like that. And I remember we had pizza and we were walking through, and everybody was like, let's eat pizza in the graveyard. Because when you're a kid, this seems like
That's
a great
the thing
plan.
to do, right? Yeah.
And I'm like,
You hadn't watched
so,
Return of the Living Dead yet, so.
I was on the other side of from away from this. I literally walked in, stayed on the path. We sat down in the middle of the path with pizza boxes. We were eating it because it's so cool and risque. Oh, the things you think when you're younger. And one of the guys got up and walking around, and I just glanced across the street, and sitting on the grave was the girl, just sitting there. And one of my friends that knew me looked over and is like, looked at, because I mid pizza going in the mouth, stopped, lowered the pizza because she was looking right at us.
Yeah.
And it was a little girl. She had to be maybe 6, wearing this little outfit, everything like that. And I didn't know it had this picture on it. This was later told to me because I did that. And my friend who knew me was like, guys, we need to leave. We need to leave now. Let's go.
Yeah.
And I was literally like almost on autopilot, but she went back the next day and said that there was a little picture, because she's like, what did she asked me later what it was, and I described the girl, right, what she was wearing, everything. And I said she was just sitting there. She wasn't harmful. She was just staring at us, but it was, I was like
upsetting.
And so I described it to her, and she said that's exactly what this picture on the top of the tombstone looked like. And to this day, because I've driven past there, it's only at night, this little girl is sitting there.
Yeah. And again, things we don't understand, is that a replay ghost? Well, she never was at that cemetery as a child, probably. Is it something attached to the child and is just taking that form? That's possible. Is it a spirit? We don't know these things. We don't know what's going on, and until we can get science and studies without being laughed at, this is what we got, gang. This is what we got. We have bunches of little facts and little stories to tell, and that's oh man, I hope the little girl is doing what the little girl should be doing. That's all I can say with that. So.
Yeah, I often wondered if she because I don't begin to know how to get people to pass on. I've heard people talk about that, and I don't know how real that is.
But does that help? Are they going to a better place? That's for the psychologists, and that's why so many of these places like May Stringer, they won't let somebody come in and we're going to help Jessie May move on. Well, how do you know she's going to a better place? Here we protect her. We protect her from the bullies. We protect her from other things. Can you prove to me that she's going to a better place? Then we'll let you. So yeah. So we love places like that. That we love our ghosts. We protect our ghosts, and that's
Now that doesn't mean that if something is scaring you or doing malicious things, that you can't ask it to depart where it is presently and go play somewhere else.
Leave me alone. Exactly. It's my house now. My house. Do the if you got to, you got to. And then at worst case, you reach out to a team. I can, you reach out to your favorite local podcast host or or horror authors or whatever. We have contacts in the field, and we can find a team. Our wonderful Dr. Ordino, who was just on here, and a bunch of others coming up. We know the peeps, and we can find out, hey, you might need a visit from your local whatever. I don't like to use the word exorcist, but that's we can do that if necessary, and all that. But we don't want the last case, last scenario.
Well, I also think sometimes there are things that you just need to leave. Like it as much as it can be your space and stuff, there are sometimes, like, you think about hospitals, I feel a lot of times when I've seen things in hospitals, they're lost. Like,
Yeah, they're stuck. Yeah.
stuck, whatever trauma or whatever, like that. Generally, I remember being in a hospital one time when I was older, but there was this little, I woke up in the middle of the night. They had me on some very nice drugs, right? But I woke up in the middle of the night and there was a little kid standing in my doorway. And I was like, there are no children on this floor at all.
You're right.
And so it was there for a little bit, then it turned and it walked away. And I was like, okay, cool. Just visiting, stopping by. Wasn't trying to scare me, wasn't doing anything malicious. It was just turn, walk away. And I'm like, okay, cool. That's nice, you know. But I definitely think there are sometimes, like, you take the psychiatric hospitals and like the tuberculosis hospitals and places where enough trauma and enough negativity and stuff like that has occurred that I don't think you can cleanse those spaces with. I think it's, you know, it's been taken kind of like
for morbid, so way to be sure.
yeah, like
with holy water, or whatever.
Yeah, it belongs to them now. Like, yeah.
No,
I want one of your stories, Mark.
So, since we're focusing on younghood, I will mention, everybody knows I grew up in the Appalachian Mountains and all that, but before that, I was the first of my family born north of the Mason-Dixon line. I was born in Ohio. I'm the family shame. And the black sheep. Born in, just outside of Dayton, Ohio. And we grew up, my dad owned a house in Dayton, and we, the family lived there. And my brother was 11 years older than me and liked to, torture his younger brother, because that's what you do.
Yeah.
But I had the room that led up to the attic. And it was funny when we stayed at that one Airbnb for that event in Ohio. It was literally a mirror image of my house. It was like being in an alternate universe version of that old house, and all these memories came back. Now, I left that house when I was 6 or 5 or 6. It's so early memories of that house are very, very vague. I remember a few things, like going down. Brother had the basement. It was basically his place, and he had painted one of the walls of the basement to be the big MLB logo with the baseball guy with the bat. I was like, okay, he likes that. I just remembered the basement was where I could go and play our video game system, the Magnavox.
Ooh.
And
dun, dun,
Dad had to have all
dun.
the gadgets. Dad was a gadget guy. But one time up in my room, up to the attic, with the hallway up to the attic, I recall hearing noises in the attic and me climbing up the stairs to see what was going on. And as I entered the attic room, which was my playroom, because my brother had the basement, my parents had the first floor, the second floor was all the bedrooms, and then my area was the attic, where all my toys were all in the middle of the floor, gathered in like a circle, which I never did. I left my stuff wherever the heck it was, but they were gathered in a circle, and there was this black form, dark shadow figure sitting with the toys, and it looked slowly up at me, and I saw the red little beady eyes.
Wow.
And that's the last thing I remember before my mother carrying me down the stairs, waking me up, going, "Oh my God, are you okay? Are you okay?" And so that was, my first encounter with something I did not understand. That was my earliest memory that I can recall.
Do you feel that you, like, because you just described seeing them, right?
I saw it. Yeah.
So for you, for the most part, how do you describe your interactions with that type of spirit entity? Different than fearmonger kind of thing, but how would you describe your perception of it.
I've seen some things that I can't explain. So yeah, I've seen dark, shadowy shapes. I've seen the grayscale figures that look like they're misty,
Mhm.
made out of mist, where they, I saw an old soldier once, it was basically a Civil War soldier in a museum in West Virginia when I was a young kid. And I thought it was some neat effect of the light with a reenactor, but he literally looked like he was in an old black and white movie or stepping out of a black and white photo.
Oh, wow.
Almost see through him. It was very grayscale, and very pale and very gaunt. I saw a lady there in a dress, a wedding dress at one point, and the wedding dress was on display, but it was her inside it, and not have about being there. Yeah, that was at the old Sunrise Museum, which is now private property again, but it was the original governor of West Virginia's mansion, and for a long time was a public museum. And I was a volunteer there as a kid, and I would see these things. And the guy who ran the the kids program for the museum would just be like, "Yeah, just don't tell anybody. I see him too." And that was when I knew it wasn't crazy, because he was seeing it too, and he described to me exactly what I was seeing. So that was that was why I am so insistent on, if you see something, say something. If the little kid says, "Hey, I see this thing," don't ignore them, because they might be seeing something on a different frequency than we are. There's noises we can't hear as adults that we used to be able to hear as kids. Maybe there's things we could see as kids that we can't see as adults. As I've gotten older, it's different. Sometimes I'll hear whispers and voices. Sometimes I'll see movement more than I see shapes and shadows and stuff. So it has changed as I've gotten older, but that was my first. Now, the one that stands out because, you never forget your first time, but the one that really, cemented into my life that, okay, I need to learn more about these things because I don't understand them. I was a teenager, and I was coming home from school one day, and I knew there was something odd in my room in our house in Shore Acres. I didn't know what. I'd sometimes hear voices. I'd sometimes feel cold spots. Knowing this, growing up with this, I'm like, okay, if you want to talk to me, I'm here. I'd like to know your story. I'd like to be able to help and all this. And my grandmother lived with us. And we were, and so she was out in the living room one day as I came home from school, and she's talking to somebody. And now she was generally home alone. My mom worked. Dad did his, this is after he retired. So this was dad doing dad projects and stuff around the house. So, she was usually left alone in the living room watching TV. And then I would have to go watch TV with her and react all the stories.
I watched many a Jeopardy and Wheel of Fortune with my grandparents when I was up in Wisconsin, because that's what we did.
Well, me as a storyteller, the reason I got all that was because my grandmother would watch General Hospital and Days of Our Lives, and then I would watch Dark Shadows and Doctor Who. And but my grandmother couldn't see and couldn't hear at this point very well, so I would have to react the whole episode to her, and I would do the entire stories, doing all the characters and all the voices, which was why I was becoming a good dungeon master at that point, and a good actor at that point, and a good storyteller at that point. But then to her, I didn't tell her that they were different shows. So Dark Shadows and General Hospital blended quite a bit in my stories, and occasionally the Daleks would show up from Doctor Who. But but that was how I got away with watching on the big screen, right? I didn't have to watch it in my little TV in my room. But I came home that day and she didn't have the soaps on, which surprised me. I came home early. I'm like, Mama, we don't have, no Dark Shadows today, and no General Hospital today. And she's like, no, I've been talking to that girl who lives in your closet in your room.
Oh, nope.
Yeah. Said, her name was Sarah, and she died in that room. She died lonely and alone, and now she's happy there's a boy in the room. So, be nice to her.
Ooh, and how did that go?
Well, I researched the house at that point, Mr. pre-internet days, Mr. Scooby-Doo fan me.
Go down to the library and look at some different slides.
slides, the old microfilm Muncy, and then I was able to find that a young girl had committed suicide in that house. And not
Oh, wow.
much longer before we moved there, early 80s, and we moved there mid 80s. So she had not been dead too awful long. And so that's the one the girls feel is attached to us as a family, because she definitely followed me out of the house and followed me for, a long time. So, and Callie and Beth think she might be with them now, but because I haven't certainly interacted with her in some time, but we did a Hellview episode talks about that. So please go back and listen to that, gang, and you'll get a little more about Sarah, the house ghost. So
Yeah.
but that was the one I was like, well, I don't see her. And I turned around, and as I did that, I saw a shadowy shape walk through my room, and I run in, and as I get in there, the closet door is closing.
Wow.
So, did I open the door? No, I should have, but I didn't, because back then I was a scaredy cat.
Well, at the same time, I mean, you know me. Nope.
Yeah. Well, I also think if she wanted to tell me about herself or show me, she would have shown me. And I think later on she did show herself to me, but at that point, early days, you got to take relationships slow, right? Yeah.
No, especially as a youngin', Mark, you should definitely do that.
But that's my story for Halloween, gang.
Wow.
Oh my gosh.
It's funny, as I started making a list of the experiences that I've had, and I have to say it's much longer than
we just scratched the surface. I know.
It scratched the surface, but there were so many times walking into places, and it became so, and it has become so normal for me being places and just knowing there's something else there, or something else walks through, or things, because it's not always just they're there and they're attached. Like sometimes you're just like, what the fuck was that? Right? It just walks right through the house and is out the house and doing whatever, or just observing. Like the amount of times that I feel like I was watched by something, or being, you know what I mean? Kind of like this little girl, like it was, looking and just turning and being like, because I felt the intention, that, and it happens regularly. And there are sometimes, as I got older, I was able to recognize it more, but there were a lot of times when I was younger. Like I remember being in the school library and walking past, like, the scene from Ghostbusters where the ghost is reading the book and floating there? Not quite like that, but somebody was standing reading a book, walking past, and then having the librarian be like, yeah, you're the last one here, you need to check it. And I'm like, no, but okay, cool. Like, or if you had that experience, you're like, okay, cool.
My experience is similar to remember the movie Ghost?
Oh yeah.
Crazy. Remember when he goes into the subway and there's the other spirit played by the late great Vincent Chiavelli, who's able to manipulate things and go, hey, you get out of my subway, and all this, and suddenly people's stuff's going everywhere. I've seen something like that where there was somebody who looked off, wasn't really there, and had that bit of a grayscale to him, and he's literally shoving people out of the way to yell at me, and then I'm like, wait a minute, nobody else is seeing him because they're all trying to figure out what the heck's going on. And so, does that make me in tune? I didn't hear him, but that one I saw at one point while I was in New York, and I was like, wow, that's what is this? And I literally for a minute thought it was just some guy, some New York crazy on a subway and in the 80s, but no, this was something else completely different. So,
and I think that's the case. I think you can have perceptions and they can be different, and I think there's things that you can see with your actual eyes, and then there are things that you perceive, because I also feel like, one of my experiences a lot growing up, and we'll do a different episode. Sorry, listeners, you have to actually ask me this question. Maybe I'll do a listener episode, but
we'll do another one.
Is perceiving like the uncomfortableness of somebody, and not just based on their body language, but almost like the energy that they're giving off, or are they afraid, or are they, the amount of times it's interesting. People have pointed out, I say things like, forgive me, you don't have to worry, or you don't need to be afraid, or you're not in trouble, or things where they're not even like, how the hell would I have perceived this particular emotion from this person, right? And I think it has to do with empath, but I think we all can see things differently based on partially how we choose to perceive them.
Yep.
But listeners out there, as me and Mark have revealed a little bit, I hope this feeds your desire to know a little bit of my ghost stories. I have no doubt, share more. And eventually some of my favorite ones have also involved going on ghost tours and experiences with that. So maybe we'll do that as a separate episode at some point, because
that will be fun. Yeah, agreed. And gang, if you want, let us know specifically what you want to know more about, and if you want us to have more expert guests, or if you just want to hear more from us, whatever you'd like, please drop us a line. We love all the feedback. We love everything. We love hearing from you guys. We love continuing to do what we do. We thank you so much for helping us blow up, and vote for us at paranormalitymagazine.com, paranormalitymag.com. Vote for us to be one of your favorite podcasts. That would be the best Halloween present ever for us.
Absolutely. And
we would love to do more with you guys. And again, if you do go there and subscribe, use the code TRAVELS, get a discount. And then I think, though, I feel the veil is getting thinner.
Oh yeah, no, I let me just tell you how freaked out this month is making me. Like, I've already had some stuff, but I am so not excited about coming.
I loved when you came to the house and you were like, "Oh, the guy's still in that room." I'm like, "Yep, he's still there. We can still sense him." But
see, and that's a great example where you didn't tell me anything about this person.
I mentioned that he was still around. I mentioned that we had done some things to try to get rid of him. So
yeah, and when I first went into your house, remember, you didn't tell me anything about that. I first walked in and I was like, what the hell is that?
Yeah. That was before I even bought it. And I was like, the first time I went in here, I was like, okay, there's a guy here I'm going to have to deal with. But that was it. We're going to have an extra neighbor. So,
well, you have your neighbor, and he seems harmless, and he seems like he's happy.
Yeah. He's loving that I'm filling the house with books, because he's a book lover. So we're going to bond over that later. So, but anyway, gang, bond with your ghosts, enjoy your ghosts, report your ghosts, tell your kids they're not crazy. If you've seen something too, share your experiences. And with that, gang, I think there's only one other thing we can say.
What is that?
We'll see you on the other side.